Welcome to episode 91 of My First Job, the podcast. Today's young guests are all raring to go into careers in law. Two of them are looking at intellectual property rights, and one of them is looking at criminal law. So, we will be looking at what their interests are, how their motivations formed, what is it that they have in mind as they go forward. So, Sai Jawahar has a fervent interest in intellectual property law, media, entertainment law, and sports law. He has interned at several law firms specializing in intellectual property and engaging in research projects. So, welcome to the show, Sai Jawahar.
Hi everyone, I'm Sai Jawahar. How are you guys doing? And
Great.
this is my first time I'm into a podcast or something like that. I'm really excited about getting into it.
Wonderful, Sai Jawahar. Mrinal Seetaraman is interested in criminal law and has interned at the Supreme Court in India and studies at the Shanmugha Arts, Science, Technology and Research Academy in Thanjavur. Mrinal, welcome to the show.
Hi everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to have been a part of this podcast.
Okay, great. We'll get into detail about what your interests are. And K.
Yes, sir.
Swaminathan is also interested in IPR intellectual property and has interned at the chambers of Mr. N. Venkatraman, the Additional Solicitor General of India. Before I bring him on, I'd just like to finish this part, which is that this is episode 91 of My First Job, the podcast that covers engaging career journeys. And every single one is full of twists, turns, and insights. I'm Venu Gopal Nair, the host of the podcast and CEO of Ideascape Communications, an advertising agency into branding, creative, and design. So settle in, sit back, and enjoy the conversation. So, Swaminathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this show.
Okay, great. So, let me start off by asking all of you one by one as to what were the other career options you considered, and was there parental pressure before you made this decision? Sai Jawahar.
So to start off first, when I finished my 10th standard, I did my CPT exam for becoming a chartered accountant. I cleared the exam, but at the middle, I was like, my father gave me a few options. I said I didn't want to do CA, and it was really tough, and I'm not into max and all. So he gave me a few options, like do you want to be advocate, or so he gave me like two or three options. And one thing he made me do is he took me to Delhi when I finished my 10th exams. So we went
Okay.
and we met Ram Jethmalani. So we met him. He's a journalist. My dad is a journalist, so he gave me the opportunity to meet Ram Jethmalani, and I had a
Okay.
conversation, like 10 minutes conversation with him. He gave me
Okay.
autograph, and that's when I decided I have to take law.
Okay. Not bad. Your father went straight to the top.
Yeah, he knows him.
That's yeah. No, that's a great introduction because it means that you have a chance to meet a legal luminary and get to understand from the very best in the business as to what a career could be. Okay. So great. Nanal, what was your start like?
My path was completely different. My hobby used to be playing chess, snooker, and cricket. Nothing else. I was not into studies. So there was a turn when I studied 11th. My school
Okay.
had an option of commerce with legal studies.
Okay.
So I'm not into math. I'm not good at maths. So my father had an option saying choose legal studies, which is the future, which has a lot of scope. It is not like the old one. Old one it is strict to criminal law, civil law, just both of these. But nowadays,
Okay.
arbitration, nowadays you get into various mediation,
Right.
international. disputes, commercials, tax, and so on. So then I gave up chess. I gave up snooker. That was the first time I knew what law is, how law works. That was in the 11th standard. Then slowly after going to 12th, and then I decided to have a BBA LLB course
Okay.
because it is a balance between a business management, which I loved, with the subject which I loved. So, and law. Now you have it as commercial law, arbitrations, business law, consultants. So, so that was when I decided to be in BBA LLB. But I had a separate interest in criminal law. So initially, my plan was to become a chess player, but later ended up in law. That
Okay.
was because of the introduction of the commerce with legal group in our school.
Okay. Great, Pranal. So uh, let me hear what Swaminathan has to say. What happened with you?
For me, I would say it was indeed pressure, but it was indeed a delightful pressure, and I'm extremely grateful for the pressure. So my sister had done her biology in her 11th and 12th, and she became a doctor. And naturally, the competitive person in myself wanted to say, okay, even I will do biology, and I will be able to become a doctor myself. uh, and my parents and my sister well knew that I was the lazy person that I am, won't be able to do biology and won't be able to pass 12th. And I'm saving millions of lives by not studying medicine, and I'm by taking the law profession. And my father is a chartered accountant, so my next profession was to become a chartered accountant. And again, I am not as great in math as my father or anyone in my family. And fortunately, I would say I'm very fortunate in this. My grandfather was part of the judiciary in the Madras High Court. So
Okay.
I got little guidance from him. And despite my protests not to take law, and I was given this opportunity to study law, and I've been in love with the subject from the very beginning. So that's indeed a grateful and delightful pressure that I.
Okay. Great. So apart from figuring out what you wanted to do, I think one common characteristic is that you all wanted to evade maths, which I think is a normal. Uh, it's not something that is very uncommon in this age because maths is extreme. You either love it or you hate it. There aren't too many in betweens. Nobody feels ambivalent about maths and says, "Okay, I'll do it," but no, it's very clear as to what this whole thing is about. I want you
The
to tell me what is it that you felt about your first few years when you first joined in into law college. What were the expectations, and what is the difference now that you have gone through the course, you've interned? What is the difference that you see, Sajavar?
So starting off, I started my 5 year course in 2019. So I
Okay.
had first when I joined in Sastra, I had high expectations from my family members because I'm the eldest kid in my family among my cousins and everyone. So they had high expectations of me. And coming to the college part, people, I thought it will be more of a practical experience doing law, but it turned out it was more of a theoretical way of studying law. We used to read bar acts, read cases. There was no practical experience, and we had 2 years of COVID in between. We did all the
Ah,
online studying, and then when we again came back, like 2 years for my fourth and fifth year, it was again theoretical. So all I learned was through the internships in middle periods, like 1 or 2 months internships in high courts or supreme courts or in firms, corporate firms. I started to learn few practical experience, and that when I developed my skills for a law.
okay. Great. Fine. Mrinal, what's it been like for you? Mrinal, I'm getting some feedback from the mic, so I don't know if that's a echo or the thing, but yeah, please go ahead.
Hope I'm audible now. Hope I'm clear now.
Yeah, you're audible. You're perfectly audible. At times, I
Now,
got a. Yeah, please go ahead, Mrinal. I just wanted to tell you that there was a bit of a. Yeah, tell me.
so when I
So,
joined law school, it was fully
huh,
into theoretical, like what Sai told. studying barracks, studying, understanding the act sections, subsections, provisions. And my first internship was with an additional Solicitor General. With my colleague Swaminathan, I interned with him as well. I interned with the same office. So my first topic was company law, which I had zero knowledge, which I didn't have any knowledge of. So it was totally different. The thing what you study in
Okay.
law school and what you practice. That's when I understood that they're both complete different. They're just two angles. It's different on how you study law, and that's how after my first internship, I knew how the courts work, how the lawyers bring the argument. So I had a different expectation when I joined the law school the first year. It was my first, so it
Okay.
was, I had just a different expectation, but I understood it to be a completely different aspect after my first internship.
That's always going to be the case. I don't think it changes for anyone, right? But what about you, Swaminathan? What is it like,
Uh,
your experience of?
yes, sir. So I'm in my fifth year in law school, and my major part of law school has always been participating in moot court competition. So what
Okay.
exactly this moot court competition is that many universities will participate in a competition where through our advocacy and through our argumentative skills, we fight to win a particular case. So now the major reason I when I started going for moot courts was to bunk my college. I get to go to another state or another college, and I was able to participate and network with the college students. But it has been a great experience for me. My first 10 moots, I wasn't able to win anything. The next 10 moots, I won every single moots. So it has been a very pleasant experience for me, and it has been able to build
So
my
what did you
confidence
do
and
differently?
build my.
Yeah. So
I'm
what did
sorry,
you
sir. Could you
do
repeat the question?
differently? Yeah, you're
What do you do,
audible.
sir?
What did you do
Could you repeat
differently?
the
You said
question?
you lost the first 10 and then you won all the
Ah,
10. So did you do anything different from that point on?
indeed, indeed. The one thing I did differently was to observe my seniors when I had gone for my internship, and to take my own college seniors' advice into consideration while I go and participate in this competition. I was a very negligent person when I first went for the 10 moot court competition. Then I gained experience from the 10 moot court competition, which was then showcased in the further moot court competition. So this made me, I would say, like an experienced mooter. I wouldn't call myself an experienced mooter, but it indeed gained some experience in me for to improve my confidence and to present the case more uh, in a more pleasant way, so that the judges will be able to understand my point of view and will be able to rule in favor of me. That's something that every law student has to do to improve their confidence, their advocacy skill, their research skill, and their other abilities, and to check their other abilities amongst different law students around the country.
Okay, great. So now let's go to, you said you did a lot of theory classes. So I want you to recall one or two cases that made an impact on you. There are things which you study because it's part of your course. But there could be a couple of cases or instances which made a deep impact on how you saw how the law was interpreted, your understanding of the whole process became better. I think what Swaminathan just said about uh, presenting cases before the judge and how do you manage to present a point of view. So understanding the finer points of a case. So tell me about a case that you remember which made an impact on you.
So the case from IPR, which I remember, which was taught by our professor from Shastra University, Mr. Srikanthan sir. So there was the first case he taught us for the IPR and copyright infringement case. So that was the RJ Anand versus Deluxe Films case. So it's basically a copyright infringement case. So there is a film and there is a novel. So from the novel, a film was made with the same theme, but a copyright infringement case was filed by the novel writer. So it was held that the idea expression dichotomy, the theme was same in this case, but the idea was same. That is, the idea was same, but the way they expressed it was different. So there was no copyright infringement. Here it was held by. So copyright infringement in the case of literary and dramatic works not present in this case. So that was the first case I read in IPR, and it got me interested to read into much of more cases like Novartis case, which is also a landmark judgment in IPR field, patent sector, which talks about the cancer drug, which didn't eventually get the patent in India. So these are
Okay.
the two cases which I remember.
Which you remember the most. Okay.
Uh,
Great. Nadal, what about you?
So, the first important case which I remembered was in the Bachchan Singh versus State of Punjab case, which the importance of death penalty was just given. Whether death penalty can be given at all circumstances, or is it only when death penalty can be given in the rarest of rare cases?
Okay.
So, in that case, it was held that death penalty can be given only in the rarest of rare cases. So, the concept of doctrine of rarest of rare case was brought in. So, that is the first case which made me go into criminal law, deep into how death penalty is, how India deals with death penalty, and can everyone be tried to a death sentence? And that is when you get to understand even a person who's been guilty of death penalty, who's been convicted of death penalty, has a natural justice doctrine to be heard by the court. So that is when I started going deep into criminal law, and that is the first case which just transformed me to study criminal law more and more.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, we'll come to that because I think I have a couple of questions for you in criminal law, which I'll probably look at and then say, okay, what is your personal interpretation of something like that? Okay. What about you, Swaminathan? What are the cases that you
Uh,
recall?
I would give a very cliche answer. It's Keshav and Bharati was the state of Kerala. So, not going by the reason that was stated by my co-panelist, where understanding the law was my core aim, but for any answers in our examination for any constitutional law paper, if we write this particular case, we will get our marks. That was my sole reason why I remember this particular case in specific. And another case that I would like to highlight is it's called an Empire Jute Corporation case. It's a tax case. I have extensive interest in tax litigation in specific. So in another mood which I participated solely dealt with this particular the interpretation of this particular case, and that case has been in my mind for a very long time.
Okay. So, what was the case? What are the finer points of the case? If you can summarize it for us.
So it's basically regarding whether a particular expenditure needs to be classified as a capital expenditure or revenue expenditure for the purpose of deduction under the Income Tax Act. So I know it's a lot of words for people to comprehend, but it's when the beauty of tax is all about interpretation and nothing else. So
Yeah.
as you said, even though I'm not very good in numbers, I love maths. So this particular case and the way it was interpreted and way it was dealt by the court has deeply astonished me and mesmerized me. So that is a reason why I like the subject.
Okay. Great. So, now that you guys have committed to law as a career, do you think that your views on certain aspects of the law have changed, or they are still, you never used to think of these things earlier? For example, tax is not something that you worry about when you're studying. It's only your parents who have to worry about it because taxes have to be paid and all of those things. But when it comes to being a part of your job, then what are the things that you now see yourself looking at more closely? Can you figure out if there are any changes in the way you behave and whether you have points of view which are related to the law when you see something? Are you beginning to look at life through a legal angle? Sai, what do you say?
so yes, there has been a change. Surely there has been a change in the way I look at things. So when you look at basic things, if you look at in a society, when you see here, if you're a maths person, you look at in numbers. So I'm a law person. I'm studying law, so I look at it through my legal angle, a legal perspective, and I'm like, this law applies here. So when I'm buying things, the Consumer Protection Act comes in this place. So when I look some invention or innovation coming, I'll think this section talks about the invention. This is copyright infringement. So I'll look
Okay.
into it that way.
Okay. No, it's a wonderful thing to have because this is how it slowly begins to impact every part of your life because you're seeing so much of it. One of the things about being in a profession or in a career is that you speak about it a great deal more than people who are outside or who have only a nodding familiarity with it. Okay. So, Mrinal, what about you? How do you see things?
I agree with what my co-panelist said, but I differ with him in a slight way. I just feel every advocates have their own opinion. Every law students have their own opinion on a certain case. That is fairly agreed. But looking law with life, I differ with him in that way because it sticks to what is in court. As an advocate, the duty in court is to make sure that everything you plead before court is right. But that is not the way you just live in real life. So I completely differ with my co-panelist in that angle. But every advocate can have his own opinion, and I certainly agree with the point that there has been a significant change in my opinion on the articles I write, on the research papers I work. There is significant opinion because after studying 4 years of law, you understand on what cases there is a necessity to comment and what not
Okay.
to comment in certain cases. So the core difference is understood, and that is the
Okay.
significant change with the undergone.
Okay, great. Mrinal, I don't know if your Bluetooth or whatever is there's an echo that I'm getting after you saying it. I'm getting a repeat, so I don't know if you have to turn
Yes, yes.
off Bluetooth. Okay, I'll just
I'll do.
anyway we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Okay, so Swaminathan, what's your take? How has your perspective on life changed after you come back to this? After you've started studying law?
uh, the one good thing about the one beautiful aspect of being a law student and entering into the profession is that we allow ourselves to argue on a particular point and we convince ourselves. So now
Okay.
we get into the mindset that we are never wrong and then we enter the ring. So that's one good aspect that we as a professional and as a student do. And I believe this is one of the very few profession where we have civility in our work. So we have to use our words very carefully and very precisely in order to convince the other side as well as the bench. And despite that, I believe it's something good not to have any opinion. Because as a lawyer, we won't know whether we get the good side or the bad side. It's our it's our moral duty and it's our professional duty to represent the client who pays for us, who pays for our service. So if our mindset is clouded by which is right and which is wrong, our entire legal ethics might go in a wrong side. So I would say not to have any personal opinion on a particular legal point or a particular fact before entering into the profession, so that I practice by not having an opinion, so that even if you get the wrong side, you should do your best to defend your client and not for the money, to defend the
Okay.
client and to uphold the rule of law.
Isn't that difficult to do? Because we all have moral values, we all have a conscience, and there is a legal aspect to certain things which may or may not go with whatever that you have in mind. So I'm wondering at times, how do you reconcile? Anyway, that's a deeper discussion which is not within the scope of what we're trying to do today. Unless you have
Uh,
something to say. Yeah.
if I could, yeah. So the one
Yeah.
beauty thing about law is the law does not define, the law only defines what is right and what is wrong, and law does not define who is right and who is wrong. So
Okay.
even if it's a murder that we are defending, the person who is alleged to have committed the murder has certain rights that we as lawyers strive to uphold. So
Okay.
even if there's a mere chance that he might not have committed the act, we should do our duty best to protect that person. The same goes to every other kind of law. So even I understand as a human being, we will be clouded by our opinion, regardless of whether we are the most experienced lawyer or the upcoming lawyer or law student. But we have to try our best not to let that opinion cloud our judgment regarding our client. That would be an hindrance to our profession.
Okay.
That's what I understand from seeing great lawyers practice in court.
Okay. Great. So, has joining law school made it difficult for you to watch films which have, show the law, the profession in a way that you're saying this is stupid, or this just can't happen in court? Have you found yourself doing that, or are there films which you saw which you felt that, hey, this is beautifully done? They've actually managed to follow. Jawahar, what do you think?
Sir, actually, I feel we all, most of us have come into law school watching Suits. That was one of our main inspirations coming to law school.
Okay.
I don't think
Okay.
it has any impact on this.
Okay, but are there any Indian particular law films or anything that you remember, or you can't really recall anything which made a difference?
Mm,
Suits, yes, I
Yeah,
remember because it's a
yes. Yeah,
pretty
we watched
well-known
it when
series,
we were in school. Yes, I.
right?
It doesn't made any impact, but I watched the Tamil film called Nerkonda Parvai,
Okay,
which is regarding a law court scenario.
okay. But has it affected your enjoyment of, let's say, legal thrillers? So, for example, you're watching a legal film, a film which has a case which is being argued in court, and do you feel that, you know being a law student, you're looking at it more critically than you would if you were simply a
We
viewer?
we'll find the mistakes that are being showed in the courtroom scenario. Hey, you shouldn't be doing like this in court. This doesn't happen in court. We'll be commenting on that.
Okay, so that, yeah, that's great. What
That
about you,
happens.
Miller?
I find fault in every movie which I see, but especially with respect to law. Janagana Mana, there's a movie called Janagana Mana in Malayalam,
Yeah,
and Nerkonda Parvai, like my co-panelist suggested. So
yeah,
all these movies, there's always a significant fault in courtroom, how the courtroom works, how the courtroom looks, how the trial commences. They do not show how the trial commences. Like in every Tamil movie, you just do a promise saying what I tell is always true, and
right.
all those things. That is not realistic, of course. But if you look at the film, I always agree on that. I find fault in everything. But with respect to legal courtroom dramas, like my co-panelist said, before entering to law, Suits was my favorite. But after going through 2 3 years into the law, I find mistakes in courtroom settings, how the courtroom works. They do not portray the importance of judge in the movies. Judge mostly comes as a comedian. In what Tamil movies he comes as a comedian, but it's the whole
Yeah,
more difficult and different. So I find fault in this. I find faults.
okay,
There's no doubt.
okay. Yeah, great. So, Anathan, what about you?
I haven't thought much as to criticize the films. I just go there, enjoy the film for what it is. But one thing I would say, these films have indeed impacted my legal skills. I would say the 10 moods that I lost in the first tenure was because I was able to replicate what was shown in the film, like the dramatic things that I did in the moot court, which of course made me fail the 10 moot court competition. But apart from that, I would say the Indian versions of a legal drama has much more relevance because it is linked to a social concept than a foreign show like Suits or Boston Legal, where it's mostly commercial in nature. So I would say such legal films are indeed important to motivate students, to motivate school-going students to take up law as a career. Because even though the actual reality is not even minutely close to what is being shown in the television, but it gives them a kickstart for them to take the legal studies or law as a career in their future. To see their top stars performing, wearing a gown and performing, arguing in front of a court in the theater would definitely motivate students to take up law as a career.
Okay, great. Right. Now let's come to a question which I don't think you would have had to wrestle with at this point in time, but idealism. Because the principles of the law always go up against what real life is all about. So, what is your take as you progress and as you begin to uh, come up against real life situations where nothing is black and white? Or during your internships, have you ever had a situation where you're looking at something and then saying, I don't know which side of the law I am on this, or it has made a difference to you mentally? If it is not, then it's okay. I'm just asking you as because these are the things that you will get to experience as you move forward.
So what's the question, sir? Can you repeat it?
So, yeah, the question is that you have, let's say, okay, so let me frame that better. You have a certain point of view on what you believe is right and wrong. It's again moral versus the legal aspect. So, have you come across a case that made you reconsider or question your moral view on that particular case?
Actually, while I was interning at Surana and Surana, there was a patent patent case which came like innovation. A person came with an innovation for it to be patented, and the firm knew it was not eligible for patent.
Okay.
So what they did was they applied for the patent, but so I asked one of my seniors, and it's not eligible for patent. And how did you apply this for it to be patented? So they said, yeah, you have to do kind of these things in law. So I was like, I learned a few things then.
Okay. So I'm saying those are the real world issues of whatever happens in terms of how you have to win cases or whether you have to practice the case. So, what does that make you feel about law as a profession?
I would like what my co-panelist said. I interned with an advocate's office as well as the judge's office. So in advocate's office, I'm going into criminal side, more fully into criminal side. So
Right.
you get to argue for a person who has been acquitted of a murder. So when you give all the provisions which have a chance of acquitting him. But the other side, when we hear the first side arguments, we get convinced. But when we hear the other side arguments, we suddenly have a doubt. It creates a
Okay.
confusion. That is the confusion I had doing in a doing in an advocate's office. So when I interned with the judges of the Supreme Court, I found it completely different. So they stick to the point on which they argue. They make notes and they clearly identify what the issue is and give the judgment. So that is how it works. So you get to understand the mind of the judges. That is the main advantage in judicial internships, which I found very interesting. In advocate's office, you tend to get confused. And after hearing both sides of arguments, I used to just reconsider is my thinking right or is my approach towards this case right or wrong. I've asked this question several times. But after a judicial internship, you just understand the minds of advocates on how the questions they answer, what the questions they ask, and how the case judges approach this case. For example, if it's a bail case, a judge's look into the custody period which he has undergone. So there is always a right to liberty. So it is the approach on which how, and I have always had this opinion and this doubts and confusion, but the judicial internship cleared all my confusion. That is just a game changer.
Okay. Great. Swaminathan, what about you?
Yeah. So I haven't had this problem as to whether a judgment has gone against my moral side. I have not come across it, but I would like to slightly deviate from the question that you asked. Not exactly whether a judgment is moral or not. I've gone through this problem as to whether a judgment is right or wrong. So, and again, coming to the one of the tax problem which I had come across in my previous internship is whether how a particular section within the Income Tax Act needs to be interpreted. I had to read through one of a Supreme Court judgment, a two-judge bench of the Supreme Court, where the Honorable Court had given a split verdict. So I first read the first half of the judgment. I was convinced that that was the correct side, and then I went on to the second half of the judgment where the honorable judge had given a dissenting opinion. Then I had to completely change my mindset and had to convince myself that that's the wrong point of view and this is the right point of view. So to understand, as and we were and our office had gone to the Supreme Court larger bench in an appeal, and I had to find a point as to which is right or which is wrong. So that gave me an eye-opening experience or an opportunity for me to first understand the concept of law myself, rather than look at other people's opinion about the point of law. So
Okay.
that is when I dissected the provision into its various components. I had to search for the words of every sentence of the said legislation, and I had to first create my own impression of the legislation and then read the judgment that is given by the honorable court. And this exercise has been a very helpful exercise for me, so that I will be able to not only understand the judge's point of view, but will also be able to make an perception of the judgment which is right according to me. So that is something that has really helped me not only with my internships but also with my moot court competitions.
Okay. Great. So now I want you to tell me how you think you will approach your career. What is it that you think you will be doing immediately, or and what is the way that you see your career play out? What I'm not saying that things are going to happen exactly the way you want it, but in your mind, where do you start, and what are the milestones that you see for yourself? Sajar, one moment. I
Yes,
think this particular thing. Yeah, one moment. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So currently, I am pursuing my LLM in IPR and Technology Law in OP Jindal University. So I'll
Okay.
be completing my course in maybe in June 2025, June or July. So what I expect after that is I am very much interested in like sports law, like media, entertainment sector, and how it's interconnected with the IPR, like the licensing, merchandising, the sponsorship agreements. So I want to get in after maybe June, July 2025. I would like to get into a top tier IPR specialized firm to maybe do IPR litigation or in some corporate IPR litigation.
Okay. So, what will that involve when you get into a media company? Typically, where do you start? What do the interns do first? What is the
For,
kind of, how do you progress in that particular field?
First, I'll be drafting contracts for, say, let's say for, I had a case relating to celebrity rights and personality rights where we'll be asked to look into the, like we have the Arjit Singh case recently where his name and his voice was protected. So similarly, we'll be asked to draft contracts and agreements and from compliance report with relating to see the data protection and his voice protection, his personality rights being protected, and similar way.
Okay. All these are pretty new, isn't it? In the sense that
Yes,
you didn't have to worry about these things even 10 years ago. And all of a
yes, I
sudden,
didn't know
AI has
these
made
things
it
10
very
years
difficult
ago.
for you to
Yes.
to sort of hold on to personality rights, which you never earlier. It used to be. I remember when films first came in. Uh, the earlier set of films which you had, you didn't need to worry about digital rights or satellite rights. So there was a point at which films used to play in theaters, and that was the end of it. And suddenly, when digital came in, you had a whole set of new laws which had to come in to amend. Then it was when you dubbed the film, what kind of rights? Now, of course, it's gone into streaming, which is still vague because what's the difference between digital and streaming? Anyway, that's a
Streaming.
different matter altogether. What about you, Mel? How do you see
To
this?
be honest, I keep changing my future every year. So in first year, I wanted to become a corporate lawyer. Second year, I
Okay.
wanted to become a criminal lawyer. Third year, I thought of going into judicial clerkship. So and now I stick to judicial clerkship. So after doing some
Okay.
judicial interns, judicial clerkship is nothing but where you get to brief judges on the matters listed the next day. So you
Right.
get a variety of matters. It is according to the portfolios which the judges get. So you get to make notes, you get to brief the judges, and that is when you get to understand practically on how judges approach. So after a 4 year thing, I'm sticking to a judicial clerkship, and that is my plan for the next 4 years. 4 years I'll be into judicial clerkship, and I'm thinking of going into corporate as a consultant after the
Okay.
completion of judicial internship. And I stick to judicial internship after 3 years.
It's a wise course to adopt because this is always going to change. Swaminathan, what do you think? What is your,
Yes.
yeah?
So I advocacy has always been a great interest for me. So litigation is something that I definitely go into. Firstly, I wanted to enter purely tax litigation. As I said, I'm very fortunate to have few lawyers in my family who are also into tax litigation, and that definitely gives me a boost. But I took various advices from my professors, my friends, my seniors. They advised me not to specialize in a topic such as tax in the very beginning. It's a very niche concept that is very hard to come out of. So even after 10 years or 5 years, if I want to maybe broaden my specter, I won't be able to come out of this small bracket of tax because it's very niche subject, and very few people practice tax as a profession. So what I am planning to do, hopefully, is to join an advocate office, preferably a senior advocate, if if I'm having good time, and maybe I gain experience and learn something from him. And I'm planning not to be worried about my salary, because salary is something that's a big problem for law as a career and litigation as a career. So I don't want to be much. I don't want to put much thought into whether I get enough salary or not. I want to first experience the courts and gain experience from my seniors and my friends, my seniors, so that if I come out of an office, I will be in a position to take care of myself, and I will be confident enough to take forward myself in a proper pathway. And I also have teaching as an option, so I don't want to take that as a sole career, but maybe if I'm given an opportunity where I'm given to interact with students, I would indeed love to give few of my insights. I'm not saying I'm very insightful. I'm the least amounts of insight anyone can see. But if I gain some experience, I believe I would be of some help to the students, and I would be able to guide them and to where I would be in future. So apart
Okay.
from this, if things are not working out in my favor, I would maybe join a corporate office or as an in-house counsel, where I don't have to worry about my salary for a very long time. I get fixed amount of salary, but my interest is always in litigation, where I get to go to the courts of law and argue a particular case.
Okay. Great. So there is this thing that justice in India seems to the wheels of justice. They finally do, find the right answers, but the process seems a trifle slow. Do you think that that is the way it's going to be? Anyway, that's, I think, a bigger problem, which, as far as you're concerned right now, is not of interest. So maybe we'll skip that altogether because that becomes the normal it becomes a point of view. Is this right? Is this wrong? It is not. There is nothing that you can do about it. So, which are the places where you think you want to make an impact? Is there something about the legal profession that you think you'd like to explore at some point in time? So, Jawahar, tell me, what did Mr. Jethmalani tell you? Do
Sir,
you
I
remember
just
some aspects?
yes, sir. I said him I didn't want to do law. I'm not sure about what I'm going to do. So
Okay,
he just gave me like basic advice. I was in my schooling at that time, and
right.
I told him I didn't know what I'm going to do in future. I told him, and he wrote me like a letter with his signature. And he wrote, "My blood is boiling." So he said you should be always motivated, have an interest, do something which you like, and don't get pressurized from your parents. And my father was standing next by, so he just told me that don't get pressurized by whatever your father says, and just follow your mind whatever it says.
Okay. And he said his blood is boiling because he felt that
Your
you shouldn't be just laid back and say, I'll do whatever. Is that what he meant?
yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's amazing to meet people like that because they always have a. Mrinal, what about you?
Uh, can you repeat the question? I got lost of this right answer.
No, is there some particular aspect of law that you think you want to explore a little more as opposed to what is there in, because it's such a big area. There is, are there specifics that you want to look at that you think will be of interest in future, even if you're not really
Mm.
looking at
I
that
am
as a
of a
profession?
practical approach. I feel that there is no specialization required in law.
Okay,
Everything can be read together. There is nowadays it have become a fashion that I'm a specialist in criminal law. It need not be specific that he is only known into criminal law. So
right.
I feel I should go more into criminal law because nowadays if you look at the present scenario, there is a need to understand criminal law and there's also a need to understand how the constitution works. So I feel I should go more and more into that. Like my co-panelist said, even I also have an habit of have a slight interest in teaching. So my first word will be study the constitution. It is a must that everyone should know the constitution, and it is a must that everyone should know how the criminal laws work. So without which you can't understand how the courts work. So I feel that I should go more into criminal law, more and more into criminal law, to which I am working to an extent. So, and I feel that everyone, even be it not as an advocate, it's a must to study the Constitution. Constitution is the most interesting and an important document which we have. So I feel there is a necessity for everyone. And I have a specific interest to go into criminal law.
Okay, great. What about you, Swaminathan?
Yes, sir. So another beauty of this profession is that we have space for all interests. So as a lawyer and as a law student, you have to know all the subject regardless of whether you like it or not. Say, for
Yeah,
example, a patent. You only an engineer will be able to understand the intricacies of a particular invention. But as a lawyer, you are the one who is representing the engineer before the court. So you would
right.
have to sit with the engineer to understand how this particular invention works, so that you would be able to explain it to the bench. Similar way, if you're representing a doctor, you will have to understand the anatomy or where the doctor would have gone wrong and how the operation had to be performed in order to protect your doctor. So this is a beautiful subject where not only you stick with the law, but you have to study the allied studies also. Psychology is another major subject that is being used used as a lawyer. Say, for example, when you're cross-examining a witness, even though an experienced lawyer wouldn't have studied psychology, but he would definitely use various psychological tactics to make sure that the witness answers in his favor. So this is a unique profession where you need to learn all the subject regardless of whether you like it or not. And as stated earlier, tax is one of my great interests. I would like to explore that. And if I get a chance, I would like to go back in time and practice constitutional law, because I believe all the great constitutional law cases have already ended, and all we are having right now is just the consequence of all these great judgments. So if I'm able to go back in time to be a part of all these landmark judgments, that would be a great that would indeed be a great thing for me.
Okay, wonderful. That's an insightful answer. I think that's a great take on uh, what is happening. The wonderful thing that I see is how businesses themselves create situations which become fodder for new laws. For example, social media. And in the US now, there's a very concerted effort to ensure that people below the age of 18 are not exposed to social media at all, because they say it affects the mental. And then the social media companies are fighting back and saying, no, that is not the case. And but just about 2 days ago, I think there was a substantial change made in Meta. I think they made some changes in the overall way in which people can interact. So, what are the things that you are following as a matter of interest? Jawahar, what are the things you read about?
Since I'm doing in my LLM in IPR, I am now much more of an interested towards the AI, artificial intelligence. So I read
Okay.
more about. So we have AI assisted creations coming up. So if AI assists you in creating like a literary work, or it assists you in like doing an artistic piece of work, who owns the copyright in those works? So is it the AI which has assisted you, or is it the human who created the AI? So I'm more much of writing a thesis on these kind of things at present.
Okay. But there are two points of view on that, whether that is copyrightable at all. Because I think
Yeah,
that's the point at
can
which,
AI be
yeah, can anything created by AI be copyrighted at all in the first
copyrighted?
place?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Mrinal, what are you reading?
So I got stuck in between because when I read IPC, I read it as an Indian Penal Code, but it has
Okay.
now amended to Bharati and Nyaya Samhita. So which I had to go again and go through it fully in order to just understand what the sections are amended, what are the necessary changes. So it took time for me to understand that because most of my interests are in criminal law. But I also have interest in arbitration, so I read a lot of world arbitration matters, international arbitration matters. And now this has become a part where the judiciary's intervention is limited and matters which are specifically for arbitration can be referred in order to reduce the burden on judiciary. So I feel I read more on company laws, arbitration matters, mediation matters. So but that is also a very good aspect which reduces the burden on judiciary. So first preference is to just reread what the Bharati and Nyaya Sanhita side by side. Read a lot of arbitration matters and a lot of mediation matters and a lot of these things. Corporate.
And then come out with that. Okay. What is your interest, Swaminathan? What are the things you're looking at?
If I understood your question right, are you asking about my interest other than law? Was that your question?
Both. In law,
Okay.
what are the things that you're reading about? And apart from law, what are the other things that are interesting to you, even as an outsider?
So in law, I'm not left with a lot of options because I'm still a final year student. So I'm stuck to the five subject that my curriculum has mandated for me. And apart from law, I have a avid interest in history and art. So I also try to read how the ancient Indian society viewed law as a career and viewed law social uh, as a social thing where everyone practices it regardless of whether it is written or not. So I believe that is something which is being reflected in our society still, because whether or not we like a particular law, whether or not we know this particular law or not, we are bound by the said law. So I believe reading more about something other than law has also given me a perspective to see how law works. And And apart from my curricular, I have not read much. I'm not, and currently I'm not reading much about any law in particular because I don't want to burden myself with law after law after law. So I relax myself and read something related to arts or history.
Okay, great. So I think we'll have to wrap up with this particular question. So this will be the last question, and if all of you can give your answers in brief. Um, in terms of choice, 5 years later, you think you have done the right thing and you're looking forward to a career in law.
Yes, sir, I'm 100% sure I have done the right thing to be a lawyer.
Okay. And you're looking forward to a career in that.
Yes,
Wonderful.
definitely.
That's a wonderful place to be. That's what I meant. Yeah. What about you, Mrinal?
I'm here, sir. I'm completing my fourth year. But so far, I just feel that I've come into the right place.
Okay. And finally, Swaminathan, what do you think?
At this point, I don't think I have an option left. Rather than say I did take the right decision, because it's already a huge course, 5 year course where I would have to waste, and I have to take another 3 year or 4 years to do something else if I wanted. But I would say there's no regrets in me taking law as a subject, and I believe not only lawyers, everyone needs to understand and know our law, and it's not restricted only to our law students. So that's the school of thought I come from. So this is definitely a very good career option that I've taken as a student.
Great. So law will be of use to you not just in your career but in life as well. So thank you all for
I would just
coming on
add
the
a
show.
point.
Yeah, sure.
I would say we
So
should just use our internship opportunities. So
yeah,
in order to
go ahead.
just go, so in order to understand more and more, I would say we should not miss any internship opportunities which we get, be it in a different side of law. So my school of thought is that everything is a learning. Every internship you learn something new, and till death, I feel that we'll keep learning something new. And that's the beauty of law.
Wonderful. Okay, so we must leave it there for now. Thank you guys for coming on the show. Let me wish you all the very best, whether it's in criminal law, whether it's in IPR, whether it's in media and entertainment, or figuring out your own course of action. Because, like you said, law is going to be applicable to every single aspect of life. And let me wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you
It's
for the
indeed a
opportunity.
Thank you
pleasure
so
being
much.
here.
Okay, so I'll just
Yes, sir, too.
closing remarks and then I'll close out on the show. Thank you. So that was a conversation with three soon to be legal professionals, and they've all charted out their course for the future. Let's wish them all the best. And next week, we'll be back with another career and another set of guests. And thank you as always for listening.